All right. We're going to end our ice-breaking portion of this session. And we're recording our session again today, which is focusing no longer on what the United Nations believes we ought to do, no longer specifically on the European Green Deal or how it is being implemented or not in Central and Eastern Europe. We finally arrived at the Austrian and Viennese level, at the state and local level, and have an excellent resource person for learning more about that today. And after he has given his comments, we'll again have an opportunity to ask questions and discuss for a while. Chris has agreed to introduce our speaker today. When we get to the point where each of us can ask a question, please, I would like it if you would give your name, of course, and indicate what your research focus for this project is. Chris, you have
maybe Bruce, maybe could we maybe start with this introduction? I would be curious to see who you are or to know who you are.
Sure, then I'm going to call out names using my layout here and start with Reagan.
Sure. Hi. So my name is Reagan Humphrey. I am in my last year of my undergraduate bachelor program studying geography and GIS and doing a minor in urban planning and looking at environmental planning within that. And
your research focus?
Yeah, so my research focus is going to be on the just transition mechanism and fund within the European Green Deal.
Cool. Thank you, Reagan. And Ling Fai?
I'm an econ senior student, and my focus is on the circular economy plan for the EU Green Deal. Yeah, that's it.
Just transitions and circular economy in Ana, Venezuela.
Hi, I'm Ana Valenzuela. I'm a junior studying global studies and political science with a minor in German, and my research concentration, I guess, is biodiversity, and more specifically, the EU's biodiversity strategy for 2030.
Thank you, Anna. Moving on to Chris.
Hello, my name is Chris. I'm a senior, and I'm majoring in integrated biology and then sustainability as well. I'm focusing on mostly renovations and buildings and different types of infrastructure for the Green New Deal.
That is something I think that is very, very pertinent in Austria and also in Vienna with a lot of building and renovation potential right now. And there are two other students who are not with us right now. One is named Victoria, and she has a research focus on sustainable mobility. And the final student is Vikram, and he is focusing on clean energy. All right, now Chris, could you introduce our speaker?
Of course. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Stephan Renner today, who was born in Linz and grew up in, excuse my pronunciation, but Malviertel, and has resided in Vienna since 2007. He is a trained mechanical engineer with a PhD in political science from the University of Vienna. From 2008 to 2012, he served as researcher and project leader for the Austrian Energy Agency. And then for the next 8 years, he was project advisor for the European Commission Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises in Brussels. In 2020, Dr. Renner returned to Vienna to join the cabinet of Austrian Federal Minister for Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology, led by Ms. Lenore G. Weisler. We are pleased that Dr. Renner could join us today, and Dr. Renner, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I can say it much better. Thanks for that. I think, wow, you're experts in just transition, circular economy, biodiversity, renovation. What can I tell you? I haven't prepared a presentation, a PowerPoint slide. I have PowerPoint slide that Peter Kraus gave me, and he's an MEP, and not an MVP, he's an MP for the city of Vienna. What you missed, I'm also an MP for the Green Party in the district of Hernals, which is the 17th district of Vienna, which is a small, like 40,000 people live, no, 50,000, I think, Bruce, no, live there. So it's like an arrondissement in Paris. In Paris, so I'm elected official, so I'm a Green Party member as well. So I'm not a neutral observer, but I'm actually and also serving for the minister who is from the Green Party. So in Austria, we have a coalition between the Conservatives and the Greens, which is not easy, I can tell you, because there are different views on many things, and some of the more conservatives haven't really understood that there are also a lot of chances in protecting the climate, and are still in a defending mode, or a rather defensive mode, because they're trying to continue with the status quo and not change. So what I wanted to tell you, or what to talk to you today, is about the Green Deal, but I see that you have discussed that already. Is that true, Bruce? So basically, you know what that is and how it works.
We would be very happy to hear what your perspective is. We are learning more and more all the time, and you can help us.
Okay, so overall, let's start with the Green Deal. Let's then talk about what a member state can do. An EU member state, I see it, well, you are in the US, it's a bit different. The political system is a bit different. And then within what a city can do. So the Green Deal was before the current crisis, when we were all talking about Greta, and we talk about, and climate change was on top of the agenda. At that time, in the European Commission, they realized that we have to do something. And so basically the Green Deal is first of all a communication. So it's a document, and it tries to reset the Commission's, the European Union's commitment to tackle climate and environmental related challenges. So it started with this communication, which also has an action plan. I guess you know this action plan already. So the action plan contains a lot of legislative measures, but also other communications. It's huge. So it's got so many things. It's so from circular economy to buildings, from financing to environmentally friendly technologies, from industry to energy, clean energy, and also transport. It contains all different things, all with the view to decarbonize the European Union in 2050. So in 2050, the EU needs to be decarbonized and needs to be carbon neutral. The main legislative act is the European Climate Law, which was proposed by the Commission and is now in the Council, and it's now in the Council working groups. So the European Commission, the European Union has basically three different branches. It's the executive branch, which is the European Commission. It has then two co-legislators. So it's not one legislator, it's two co-legislators. It's a little bit in the US, but a bit different. So you have the European Parliament, which is directly elected, and then you have the Council, which is sent, the member states. It's basically the Council of the member states. And this climate law, which has the idea to put this 2050 climate neutrality goal into legal terms, is currently in the council working groups. So this 55%, which was endorsed by the European Council, it's another instrument. It's another level. I don't know if you know the difference between the Council and the European Council. So basically, the European Council is all the head of states. Head of governance and states. So it endorsed the 2050 goal, and now it's in the council working groups. And so as I'm now working in the ministry, I see these discussions, and and it's really the interesting thing. It's really the core of economic activities of many member states. It's this 2050 goal is for countries that have a lot of coal, like Poland. It's a huge transformation. So, and I think Regan, you work on the just transition mechanism. So, if we mention that one, it's the just transition mechanism. I think it's 100 billion euros that are dedicated just for this regions that are hit by this that have the challenge to decarbonize the economy, and those who have a lot of coal, so the coal regions, they have really challenges. In Austria, interestingly, in Austria we also have a mechanism, or not a mechanism, but also a process that is called just transition. Here it means something different. Here it doesn't mean in the EU, it means more the regions. So you have a region that is and you try to support the region. We think it's more a societal challenge. So you have people that are more affected by climate change than others, and are also more affected by policies to tackle this climate change. I give you an example: taxation. So one of the most effective ways to reduce energy consumption is taxation of energy. But if you put the taxes on energy, there's some people more affected than others. And you might have heard of the Yellow Vest movement in France, which started because the government aimed to put a taxation or more taxation on gas and fuel. And then it started as a movement against that, and in the end it was a summary of left wing, right wing, everything together. The point of that is that there are people that are affected, and the notion of leave no one behind is important. So in Austria, what we try to do is always link climate protection with social policy. So then in the end, you always take the redistribution effect, basically the distribution effect of measures into account. So taxes. If you tax someone, it increases. If you tax something, it increases the costs, and some people have to bear the costs. And those who have less money are more affected than those who have more money. So in the end, it's a redistribution to upwards, and that's why it's important to have, from a Green Party perspective, to have a good balance here. What else did I wanted to say? We can talk either about the climate law or talk about the different other policy goals. So the European Green Deal, as you know, it's also circular economy. With circular economy, of course, we mean using the materials that we have. The Green Deal is also about emissions from transport. So they have the European Commission plans to have I think it's a communication. Is it a communication or action plan? Communication on clean transport. It has a clean energy package, which is everything from the directive on energy efficiency to a directive on renewable energy. It's also what might be interesting to you is they also talk about the carbon adjustment tax, which is also a measure. I don't know if you heard about this. It's a measure to basically put a tax on products that are imported to the European Union and have a lot of carbon in it. So inherent carbon, it's basically the gray carbon. It's about land use and forestry, because one of the measures against climate change is to use forests as a sink of carbon. Voila. So that is sort of in a nutshell everything put together. So what we are currently doing. So first of all, this was and I think I used just another 5 minutes, and then I think it's more interesting to have a question answer thing. So before the current COVID crisis, when this climate change was really top of the agenda, the European Commission put forward a lot of communication instruments within the Green Deal that now trickle down to the member states. What we see now is that all the initiatives that came forward a year ago now affect us a lot. From my perspective, of course, in a positive way. So we have to implement the directives. We have regulations that are directly in force in the member states. What I'm just dealing now is, for example, financing, green financing measures, which is, for example, a disclosure regulation where companies have to disclose their carbon emissions. We have what is called the taxonomy regulation, which is, sounds very complicated, but in the end, it's just a framework where you can define what is green and what is not green, and what are the environmental goals of the European Union. That's basically a very interesting regulation. If you want to look for a research paper, look at the taxonomy regulation. It was, because just 1 minute on that, it started with something for a very specific area, which is financing, and now got a self-dynamic that it's referenced by many other legislative acts. For example, you have the Recovery and Resilience Fund, which is, you might have heard about that too, which is a big stimulus package by the European Union. And in there, you also make a reference to this taxonomy, because it's basically was the first try, or the first, the first proposal for a definition of what is green and what is not green. For me, because I followed this regulation when I was in Brussels, and I started it, and I sort of, now I see what the dynamic gets out of this. So it's really interesting, at least for a nerd like me. But so now it comes down to what I'm like on my daily job. What I'm doing is we are implementing the Energy Efficiency Directive. We are implementing the Green Finance Agenda. I'm looking at my list and what the things I have to do. We are looking at, what else do we do now? The industry package. We're working on the decarbonization of industry, and so on. So it trickles down to the member states, and I think I would stop here. I'd rather, because I think I can go on in an unstructured way very long, but it might be more interesting if you have direct questions, or I can reply to your research areas.
Thank you very much, Stephan. I want to, in my role as moderator, be selfish and ask the first question. And I imagine that each of the students will be tempted to ask a question about his or her research area. But we also have been learning about instruments of the EU, and we're trying to learn if there are certain instruments that can be more effective here, regulations, directives. We'd also like to learn more from your standpoint about the difference between communications and action plans, for example. Just about everything you said opens an avenue for further discussion. What I would like to ask, because of your role right now in the federal government, is the extent to which member states had an opportunity to and continue to have an opportunity from the, let's say, from the bottom up to contribute to what the European Union Commission and other institutions are doing, telling the member states what to do, so that it's just not top down, it's something from the bottom up that allows member states to participate in what happens.
The Commission just makes proposals. So the Commission is not a legislator; it's just the executive branch. So it's always the case that you get a proposal by the Commission, and then it goes to the Council. In the Council, usually you try to find a common position in the Council, and then you start what is called a trilogue. A trilogue is where the Council discusses with the Parliament, the European Parliament, together with the Commission. Although it's called trilogue, the decision is only made by the Council and with the European Parliament. This is complex. So, I mean, I don't know, I mean, in Congress in the US and the Senate, you have like similar things. And but when you ask the bottom-up possibilities to implement policies, as a member state, you can influence the policies in the council, and you have different council working groups, so different basically layers. You start with a technical layer where we have our it's called attaché in Brussels, and he's sitting in this council working group. He's always reporting to us, and then he gets the order from us, and then we tell him what to say, and then he tries to defend or basically argue our position. And what we are doing in this council game basically is we have to find allies in coalitions. It's as simple as that. It's democracy. You basically have to find a majority. And in aiming to find a majority, of course, you have to make compromises. And so basically how it works is you look at the specific topic that is important to you, and then you try to find a coalition for that. And then you're less strong on other aspects. Basically, you have to accept other aspects in order to get this one thing done, or this one thing into the policy. And that's an interesting game. So this is how you can affect. What happens, of course, in parallel is that you have a lot of interest groups that are trying to inform, or they're trying to have an impact in this discussion, which is this could be either in the first stage where when the Commission proposes something, that there's a lot of lobbyists that are lobbying so the lobbyist is the bad word and the interest group is the good word. I'm just using both, but it's basically just to try to get your interest into this process. So they try to lobby the Commission. In the Council, what they are of course also trying to do is put pressure on national governments, and then also of course in the European Parliament. In practice, also the European Parliament has to focus on different points. For example, now in the EU climate law, it's in the Council, and the European Parliament brought in the new aspect of having a carbon emission, basically a carbon emission. What's the English word for that? A budget basically for emissions. And how does that work? Basically, you know already, science, you know already how much carbon you can emit in order to reach a specific heating up of the Earth. So that's not exponential as we have now with the virus. It's a linear relation between every kilo, every ton of CO2 in the atmosphere and the temperature. So basically, you know how much carbon you have left. This is the total budget. And from this total budget, you basically make a year-by-year annual budget. And then you have a deficit or a surplus. But once you have this budget, you have to limit yourself, your actual activity, your actual economic activity to this budget. And that's hugely important in my perspective. And that's something that came in from the European Parliament in this discussion. We don't know yet if it will in the end it will stay, because there's a lot of interest against that, and it's also complicated, and you know what is in and what is out. But coming back to your initial question, Bruce, and you see, once I start, I can talk for ages. Maybe it's a middle-aged man thing, I don't know. But it's so basically, once it's in the council, you can only inform your government. You have to basically influence your government, or your MEP, which is the member of the European Parliament, because they also have to, in the end, have to find a majority in the Parliament.
Thank you very much. I am tempted to keep asking questions, but no. I'm going to go through the list again and start with Reagan. and she has the next question.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot that I could ask too, but I think yeah, we'll start with yeah, I liked how you mentioned kind of how Austria is approaching a just transition and that reference to kind of the EU taking a more regional approach versus Austria looking more at a societal approach. And so, yeah, I'm curious about how that's playing out. And I know you are located in Vienna, but also what does the urban rural divide look like in Austria a little bit, and if that plays into kind of a just transition. So yeah, I would love to hear some more of your thoughts on that.
It's a complex question because so what we try to so you have two approaches. You have the change by design or change by disaster, and what we obviously aim for is the change by design, and by that we mean we have to support, or we need to support these people who are affected by the transition. And this is, and here you have, I think you have both. Of course, you have societal divides. You have always poor and rich, but also you have an urban and rural divide because of, for example, mobility. People who are living away from, for example, the workplace, they need to go there. If you increase the prices for fuel, of course, they have to pay more than others, which is a interesting thing, because at the same time, those people moved out because they wanted to pay less for rent and for the property. In the end, they're stuck there, and now they're affected by the effects of the increasing price of carbon, for example, which also affects the price of fuel. So and sometimes, of course, you could say this is insane for us to move out, and then you complain that you have to pay more for mobility, which is in the end natural, that you know the far away you are, the more. But either way, in the end, in order to avoid something like the yellow vests in the Gilets jaunes in France, what we are aiming to do is look at the social aspect. And then you have different, and then a complexity starts, and then you have different ways of dealing with that. It could be direct transfer to your income. It could be reducing taxes. It could be what we aim to do now is reducing the cost for mobility for public transport. So one of the cornerstones of this government is to create an Austria-wide public transport ticket, where you pay €3 a day, and then you can travel wherever you want in the whole country, or you pay €1 a day, and you can travel within your city and your region, and that's so you have different ways of dealing with it, and mobility certainly is one of the complex things. The other complex things is buildings, because everyone has to live somewhere. And usually those who have less money live in the worse apartments, buildings, and they're most affected by high energy prices because they need to heat more. So basically, another thing is that we do is we subsidize, basically. First, we subsidize the exchange of boilers, fossil gas and fossil oil boilers to climate-friendly ways of heating, and we subsidize hugely, basically, the renovation of the buildings, because in the end, then you bring down. Once you have this first investment done, you will have to pay much less for the heating system. But also here it's complex, because you have the landlord-tenant problem. Who gets what? The ones. Do you subsidize only those who have the money, who have the apartment already, or do you subsidize the tenants? And then you have different interest groups that support different things. So it's again, it's complex, but in Austria, it's not the regions, so it's not the differences between the regions, but it's really more, as you said, it's more between urban and rural, but only between the haves and have-nots. It's more a social dimension, another regional as in the European Union.
Right.
Stephan, could you take 1 minute to tell us anything you also might know about whether or not the EU is helping member states to install battery charging stations in rural areas as we make a transition to e-mobility?
Well, overall, the short answer is it's complex. No, so you have different calls. You have different calls for subsidies, and you have something that's called the structural funds. So what are the structural funds? It's basically, again, a regional approach where you support those regions that are less, well, rich than others. We have countries like Romania and Bulgaria that have the GDPs is lower than in the Netherlands or in Austria, in Germany, in France. And so they have funds where you can, and in these funds you have a ring fence, what is called a ring fencing. You have basically different types of supports that you can give, and one of them is climate protection and environmental policies or environmental instruments. And in there, there's huge sums for that. I don't know exactly the figures for mobility, so for the charging station, what it is. I know that we also subsidize in Austria, subsidize the construction of charging stations in individual homes, and if I'm informed correctly, also in basically in public space where we support communities who want to do that. But I cannot give you more details. It's not really my thing.
That is very good. Thank you for that. And Link 5, do you have a question?
Yes, like as you talk about the text, and I want to know that as I know, there's like EU built a new text standard like last year for the EU Green Deal, and I mean, like, does Austria follow that standard, or you guys build up a new standard for it? And besides the text, how about like the tariff, like between Austria and the countries in EU and outside the EU? Yeah, that's my questions.
Did you, at the beginning, I didn't understand. Did you mean taxes?
Yes, like the EU set up like a new taxation standard last year, right? And I mean, like, Austria follow that standard, or you guys set up a new standard for the test, like about the carbon emission things you mentioned?
About test about
like the carbon emission or other like this environmental friendly things, about the environmental friendly things.
We overall, as in the European Union, same as in the US, you have a common market. In the end, you have to have the same standards, because everything else would distort what they call distort the market. It's a very, well, you can criticize, it's a very liberal approach that you and also what in European studies is called the negative integration. Basically, you want to reduce the different barriers and the different between member states, and so you want to have similar standards and regulations, so that in the end you can trade basically without having duties and having different standards. So at the end, I'm not sure if you mean a specific sector of the economy or.
Stephan, I'd like to jump in. It could be that we're also thinking about aspects of carbon pricing. And we know that Austria is going through a process of reforming its carbon pricing legislation. And it could be that you could talk a little bit about how that's going in Austria.
Well, I can only say, so you're recording it, and that's very political at the moment. But I trust that you're not sending it to the opposition or to any other, to the public. Okay, sorry, so that I didn't understand it at the beginning. So you talk about the carbon price. Yes, so the goal is to put a price tag on carbon. This is not revolutionary because this is something that needs to be done urgently. We know that the external effects of carbon is around 300 euros per ton, which includes all the effects, the negative effects of climate change, environmental damages, and so on. And also you have two different systems. On one hand, you have it's called ETS, the European Trading System of Carbon, which is a cap and trade system. I don't know if you know that. So basically you have an amount of carbon, you put a cap on it, and then you reduce this cap every year, and you're allowed to trade basically emission rights. That's the one thing that's for basically for large companies, electricity producers, steel factories, chemical factories. So they're in this ETS, emission trading system. And then we have the non-ETS system, which is the rest. And there we don't have a European, and that's the reply basically, we don't have a European common approach yet. This is being debated in this, what I mentioned before, in this EU climate law, but there's no one approach yet. So basically what we aim to do in Austria, as there's no common European standard for that, is to put a price on carbon. But also this is complex, but it affects the, it put a price on fuel, it affects the income of people. So you have to talk about redistribution again. So we are currently in the process of discussing this, of calculating different models, who's affected who's affected how, and how can we basically redistribute what we get in revenues from that, because in the end, the goal, of course, is to steer people with higher prices. You decrease or you destimulate the use of fuels, and basically that's in the end, that's the goal. But at the same time, you have revenues, and with these revenues, we aim to have this social, as we discussed before, to have to support this this transition and to make it a just transition in the sense that you know, we shouldn't leave anyone behind. But how expensive the carbon will be, that's a point of discussion. So basically, that's where we are at the moment. And then you have different perspectives. You have the more conservatives that say we have to protect our economy, and if you put a price on carbon, we just put a burden on the economy, and we have now a recession after the crisis, and we cannot now put a price on that. And you have the other perspective who says that well, change by design, we have to do it now, and this is the only way to do it because it's the most effective way. There's the price signal. So you have different policy instruments. You have the price signal, you have standards and regulations, and those are the most. And then you have information usually. But one of the most effective ways is the price signal. And that's why we're working on it, and it will come this year, hopefully. But we are in a coalition, and the way democracy works is you have to find majorities. And so basically, yes, we work on it.
Thank you very much. That is a challenge. I remember in December participating in a climate change Vienna forum on climate change, where the people were talking particularly about this and trying to gain control of a narrative about it in society that focuses on the bonuses and what can be gained, and trying to decrease the emphasis on price and tax and that kind of language. With the claim being the more you can talk about bonus and advantages and subsidies, the better off you are. Anna, would you like to take the next question?
Yeah, so you keep talking about like plans and compromising and needing the majorities, and like obviously change needs to come like the sooner the better and everything. So I guess it's more of an opinion question. Like, do you think that the rate like at least politically, the change is coming is like just enough time, or do you think that regardless of whenever the change does come, it will be just a little too late? And like, it is more of an opinion, I guess.
Good question. I think change will come because if I wouldn't believe that, if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be here. Basically, I'm working every day on that. It's not, I'm not making myself so important, you know, a lot of many other things working on that every day, but it's just, so I think change will come. It could just be a bit faster, in my opinion. But it's also because we are from the Green Party, Bruce as well, and we think that change needs to happen quickly and massively. And there are others who are very comfortable in the status quo. And so basically every day we have to fight against the power of the status quo, which is an immense power. Because many people are well off, or they have the warm homes, they have the cars, they have everything they need, and in the end, we don't want to, we also as Greens, as Bruce said before, it's not about taking away anything. It's just changing the way how you use energy, how you are mobile, how you live. And also because we have all the technology in place. Well, most of the technology in place already to be 100%, to have 100% renewable energy, to heat your homes carbon free. It's not a technology, it's more a social thing to bring these people to do something, to change the status quo. So that's why you need this price. And then we're back at the price signal. You need these price signals. You need regulation. Basically, at the end, we need to say, well, we have to stop combustion engine, or we have to stop gas heating systems, fossil heating system. So I think, yes, I think change is coming. We are in it, basically. It's a huge societal experiment where we are in at the moment, and change is happening. So as John Kerry said in this Munich conference, if it's really, I think he said 3.4 degrees or something, if it's really 3.4 degrees, then we are screwed because that is not good. And we have now 1 degree, and I don't know, I mean, you can see, of course, in California, all the heat waves and the fires. We have the same here, where forests are dying. So basically, yes, we need to be faster.
Before Chris asks our final question, I want to say that it seems to me we have to look for exponential change and things that can really trigger exponential change. And I'm the eternal optimist in my circle of friends always. And I see one right now happening, and it's linked to Tesla Motors in the United States having such success with its stock price. And because its stock has gone up so quickly, all the other major automobile producers are saying we have to catch up and pass Tesla with e-mobility. So General Motors is now saying 2035, we won't make any more combustible engine cars. And Volkswagen is saying the same thing. And if we in this group and in our own circles can be replicators of that kind of exponential change, then maybe we have a better chance. Chris?
Yes, so basically that, just to reply on that, so that basically brings us back to what is known also in climate science, which is called the tipping point. In climate science, it's scary because what it means is that once you pass the tipping point, you cannot control the system anymore, like the Gulf Stream or whatever. But it's also in sociology or in our society. And I think this, as I just mentioned, the Tesla phenomenon is sort of a tipping point. I think now it's widely accepted that combustion engine is done. You know, it's not a 21st century technology. It's a past technology, and it will be electric. And the same thing we will have in the heating system and in other things. And so in the end, we need this societal tipping points where there's no way back anymore. Yes.
Chris, you have the floor for the final question. You gave it to Stephan, and now it's back to you.
Awesome. Okay, so I know at the University of Illinois, we've been doing a lot of renovations on a lot of our campus buildings so that they're more energy efficient and so that we could start saving some of the cost in like the upcoming years. And like they just released a 5-year plan that would say how much they're going to invest in all the campus buildings and like how much payback they would get in return by investing that money. And I know you mentioned like the decarbonization of industry is one of the projects that you're working on right now. Do you believe that by the year 2030 that the council will begin to see a substantial amount of like paybacks because of the like changes in energy infrastructure and everything?
You want the short answer is yes. So, of course, policy or politics and policies as well, it's always about framing things. And the way we frame what we are doing, which is a huge transformation process, is we frame it as a subsidy for local businesses. Basically, we are not importing energy from Russia or from Saudi Arabia or wherever the hell it's coming from, but we're using that money invested into local businesses because they are installing heat pumps or insulation, and this pays back. It pays back on a macroeconomic level. It also pays back on a microeconomic level because these companies make profit. They pay taxes. So you're not. So basically, you don't have what we have now is we have a pipeline of energy into the country and a pipeline of money streaming out of the country. So, and the goal is, of course, to cut this pipeline in both directions and keep this money in here. This should not be a protectionist view, but it's more a regionalist perspective of keeping keeping basically the money in the area where you live, and with all the positive effects that you have to the economy. So yes, I do see that, and I see already the paybacks. What is interesting, if you talk about buildings, is the concept of energy performance contracting. The idea is you have you use the energy that you do not consume, and you put the price tag on the energy that you do not consume. So basically, put a price tag on nothing because you do not consume this energy, because you have an investment. And you have, because of this investment, you do not waste energy, basically. And with this concept, you have a contract, you have a business as usual development, and everything under the line, that sort of the area under the business as usual, is the savings. And with the savings, you use that savings and you pay the initial investment. You pay back the initial investment. So you have the investment, you have the paybacks, you have a contract, it's everything. What we are doing now is having a state guarantee for this. So basically, even if you have some homeowners that cannot pay that anymore because, or companies that are bankrupt, basically the state guarantees for that. Because we know from experience that this is very few non-payback, the non-payback ratio is very low. So there's so many different things that you can do. But definitely, I see a lot of paybacks, and it's good that your university is also retrofitting the buildings. Mm-hmm. So the University of Illinois, you are?
Yes, yeah. And they said they just released like a 5-year plan, and they said within 5 years, all the buildings on campus will have been renovated to be more energy efficient. And like they're estimating by 2030, like 50% reduction. So they're really kicking it in high gear, it seems. Yeah.
It's good.
I think it could be that the primary takeaway from our past hour together has been that in looking for best practices, we're looking for things that can lead to positive tipping points. And Stephan Renner It has been a pleasure to have you be someone who can help us figure out how we can more quickly in more areas reach those tipping points so that the temperature doesn't increase by 3.7 degrees, but we stay within our limit, and we stay within our carbon budget, and we do everything that is necessary so that the planet is something that can be used well by the young people, their children, and their children, and also by Stephan's children, who he may be thinking about right now, perhaps heading home soon. Thank you very much again for meeting with us this evening. And we're going to take what you have given us and work more now for another 3 or 4 weeks as we try to achieve our final product.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure, and I'm jealous at you that you can be at university and study. And although it's a difficult time, obviously, but and I guess you would love to have parties and student life, but still enjoy. And yes, good luck with that.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
bye-bye to everyone. Look for a message from me tomorrow with plans for our next week.
Yes, listen to your teacher.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.